So the first thing you should all know about tonight's author, Dennis Lehane, is he did not write The Departed, nor did he write The Town. I heard he likes those films very much, and I will get to his literary achievements in a moment, but we need to get that out of the way. So Dennis Lehane is the amazing author of a dozen or so novels, many of which were made into successful and award-winning films. He's made a lot of people a lot of money, including Mystic River, Gone Baby Gone, Pray for Rain, Coronado, Darkness Take My Hand, Moonlight Mile, short story Animal Rescue, and his epic crime historical trilogy, I guess you would call it. I would describe it as E.L. Doctorow crashing into Dashiell Hammett while Mario Puzo stands on the sidewalk rubbing his hands with glee, which includes the novels The Given Day, Live by Night, and World Gone By. Mr. Lehane has also written for the television show The Wire, along with local author and fan of the store, George Pelicanos. But he is here tonight for his latest novel, Since We Fell. This book breaks new ground for Lehane as we enter the world of Rachel, a woman scarred by parental insecurities, deep mental illness, and a hole in her person that she keeps stumbling over again and again. And yet she's managed again and again to pull herself up, whether by her own strength or the support of her husband, and even before the very, very bizarre, disturbing twists that occur in this novel. Lehane has you rooting for, even cheering on this deeply flawed, yet deeply inspirational protagonist, no matter where she ends up. It's another Lehane triumph, so let's get him up here. Will you please join me in welcoming Dennis Lehane?
Thank you. Jeez, wow. Wow, there's a lot of you. Thanks. I'm always surprised by people come out to see me because... What? How's that? Is that better?
Timing was perfect.
Okay. I said I'm always a little surprised by people who come out to see me because I wouldn't come out to see me. I mean, but thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see here. So I'm going to read a little bit. I was told that the readings are short, which is great. So I'm going to read a very strange section that I've never read before, so bear with me for a second. This book is about a woman who is on a continual search, first for her father and then kind of for herself, and at one point really for how to reclaim who she was, because as a reporter she has a mental breakdown in about the worst place she could have it, which is publicly. So I'm going to actually read that section. So we kind of meet her. You'll meet her then. So she is at this point a reporter. She was on the rise. Then she went to cover the Haitian earthquake, and she got a little too close to it for comfort. She developed a bit of a taste for black market Ativan, and began to disassemble at the sort of global sort of disaster fatigue that took place after Haiti. So this is when she's back. Her career is in a little bit of damage. She's in a marriage that I would describe as not particularly good to a producer at her TV station. Okay, so this is just sort of Rachel trying to get her life back together. She told herself she was happy. She told herself she was trying to get back to the reporter and wife and person she'd been before, but she couldn't sleep, and she couldn't stop watching the feeds from Haiti, following the country as it scrabbled for rebirth, but mostly just continued to die. Cholera broke out along the Artibonite River. This was followed by rumors that UN soldiers were the source of it. She begged Clay Bone, her assistant editor, to let her go back for a week, even at her own expense. He didn't even dignify the request with a response, just told her she was expected in the parking lot behind the station where she'd hop a van to cover a 6-year-old in Lawrence, who claimed God had given him the numbers his mother used to win the lottery. When cameras secretly filmed UN soldiers removing a leaky pipe from the ground along the banks of the Artibonite, and the footage went viral, Rachel was interviewing a 100-year-old Red Sox fan attending his first game at Fenway. As the cholera continued to spread, Rachel covered back-to-back house fires, a hot dog eating contest, a weekend of gang-related shootings in Dorchester, 2 elderly sisters who created end tables out of bottle caps, a BC party that got out of control in Cleveland Circle, and a former Wall Street broker who turned his back on high finance to do outreach work with the homeless on the North Shore. The stories weren't all tripe. They weren't all inconsequential. Rachel had almost convinced herself that she occasionally performed a valid public service when Hurricane Tomas hit Haiti. Only a few people died, but the shelters were wiped out, sewers and septic tanks overflowed, and the cholera outbreak metastasized across the island. She'd been up all night, following the available footage and reading the reports as they came across the wire, when Brian Delacroix's name popped up in her inbox. Brian Delacroix, this is the only reference you need to know. He was somebody who showed up in her past, and he continues kind of popping back and forth, and they have some sort of odd relationship, mostly by email. But she ran into him once, and it went a little weird. She opened his email, and all it said, "Why aren't you in Haiti? We need you there." It was as if someone had placed a warm hand to the side of her neck and tilted her face to his shoulder and let her close her eyes. Maybe since that off-kilter encounter outside the Athenaeum, she had been judging Brian too harshly. Maybe she just caught him on a bad day. Rachel had no idea what exactly had happened, but so what? So Brian had acted a little odd, a little nervous. What was wrong with being a little odd and a little nervous? "Why aren't you in Haiti?" he had written. "We need you there." He understood. Somehow, from a remove of years and through the scantest of cyber contact, he grasped that it was crucial she get back there. And as if she'd ordered it up like a pizza, half an hour later, Sebastian came home and said, "They're sending you back." Back where? He pulled a plastic bottle of water from the fridge and placed it to the side of his head, closed his eyes. "You have the contacts. You know the customs, I guess." "Haiti? They're sending me back to Haiti?" He opened his eyes as he continued to massage his temple with the bottle. "Haiti, yeah." Though he'd never spoken the words, Rachel knew he blamed Haiti for her career decline, and he blamed her career decline for his own career stagnation. So when he said Haiti, it sounded like an obscenity. When? Her blood was tingling. She'd been up all night, but now she was wide awake. Clay said no later than tomorrow. "Do I have to remind you that you can't fuck this up?" She felt her face drop. "That's your pep talk?" "It is what it is," he said wearily. She could think of a lot of things to say, but they all would have led to a fight, and she didn't want to fight right now. So she tried, "I'll miss you." She couldn't wait to get on the plane. "Miss you too," he said, and stared into the refrigerator. Back in Haiti, the same heat and crumbled buildings and exhausted despair, the same bewildered looks on most of the faces. Where there was no bewilderment, there was rage. Where there wasn't rage, there was hunger and fear, but mostly bewilderment. After all this suffering, the faces seemed to ask, are we to accept that suffering is the point? On our way to do our first story, meeting the crew out in front of the Choskal Hospital in the dense slum, Rachel walked streets so poor a newcomer would have been unable to discern the difference in the neighborhood before the quake and after it. Photos were posted to broken lamp poles and impotent power line poles and the low walls that lined the streets, pictures in some cases of the dead, but primarily of the missing. Under most of the photos, a question or plea was written. This is actually in Creole, but I'm not doing that. Have you seen me? Well, she hadn't, or maybe she had. Maybe the face of the middle-aged man she passed as she turned a corner was one of the bodies she'd seen in the collapsed church or the hospital parking lot. In either case, he was gone, and not coming back, she was fairly sure. Rachel crested a small hill, and the breath of the ghetto spread out before her, a spillage of steel and cinder block shacks, sun-blasted to monochrome. A boy rode past her on a muddy bicycle. The boy looked to be about 11, 12 at the most, and had an automatic rifle strapped to his back. As he looked over his shoulder at her, Rachel reminded herself that this was gang territory. Many war gods ran the show and fought for turf from one end to the other. Food didn't flow in here, but guns sure as hell did. She shouldn't have been walking around there alone. She shouldn't have been walking around there without a tank and air support. But she didn't feel fear. She just felt numb. She felt overwhelmed with numbness. At least she thought that's what it was. Have you seen me? No, I haven't. No one has. No one did. No one will, even if you'd lived a full life. It didn't matter. You vanished the moment you were born. That was the mood she carried into the little plaza in front of the hospital. The sole good news about what followed was that it only went live to the local market, in this case Boston. Big Six was going to decide later if they'd use it. Little Six, though, believed a live feed would stroke a sense of urgency in a story everyone suspected was losing viewer interest because of tragedy fatigue. So she went live standing in front of Choskal Hospital. The sun slipped out from a black brick of clouds directly above her head and set itself to sear. Grant, the anchor at Little Six, somehow managed to sound twice as stupid coming through an international feed. Rachel rattled off the statistics. 32 confirmed cholera cases lay bedridden in the hospital behind her. Post-hurricane flooding was contributing to the spread on a national scale and complicating relief efforts. The situation was expected to grow more dire by the day. Behind the camera crew, the slums spread out like a sacrifice to the sun god, and Rachel could feel something sever within her. It was a spiritual peace, and untouched by this world up until this moment. A sliver of her soul, perhaps, and the heat and the loss hunted it down as soon as it detached and ate it. In its place, a sparrow flapped its wings in the center of her chest. No warning, no build-up. It suddenly hovered in the center of her chest, flapping as hard as it could. And excuse me, Rachel, Grant was saying in her ear, but Rachel? Why did he keep saying her name? Yes, Grant, Rachel? She consciously avoided gritting her teeth. Yes? Do you have any estimate on how many people have contracted this deadly disease? How many people are sick? The question struck her as absurd. How many people are sick? We're all sick, she said. I'm sorry, Grant said. We're all sick, Rachel said. Was it her imagination, or did the words come out a tad slurry? Rachel, are you saying that you and the other members of our Channel 6 crew have contracted cholera? What? No. Danny Murata removed his eyes from the lens and gave her a "you okay" look. Whitty walked by. She had tried to save a girl in Haiti who got murdered. Whitty walked behind him with a graceful stride that didn't fit with her youth or the blood on her dress. Rachel, Grant was saying, Rachel, I'm afraid I don't understand. And Rachel, sweating profusely by this point, shaking so hard the mic jumped in her hand, replied, I just said we're all sick. We're all what? I mean, we're just sick, you know? The words sluiced out of her like blood from a puncture wound. We're lost and we're sick and we all pretend otherwise, but then we all go away. We all just fucking go away. By the time the sun went down, footage of Rachel repeating we're all sick to a baffled anchorman as her hands and shoulders shook and her eyelids batted at the sweat that drizzled from her forehead, had gone viral. It was the consensus of upper management during a post-mortem meeting that it was commendable that the feed was cut 4 seconds before Rachel said fucking, but it should have been cut 10 seconds earlier. As soon as it became clear that Rachel was unhinged, and most agreed that moment occurred the very first time she said, we're all sick, they should have cut to commercial. Rachel was fired over cell phone as she walked across the tarmac toward the plane home. That's it. I forgot there were all these French words in that section, and I just don't speak French. If it was Espanol, I'd be fine, but... So, anyway. Yes, can I take some questions? Yes, sir. Oh, got his hand pulled down. Yes, sir.
Hi. So, first of all, thank you so much for all your work. I never could have written and published my own work without it, so thank you for
wow,
that.
Thanks.
And,
I hope your work's good, or otherwise I'm not responsible.
It's okay. But, my question is, do you ever find yourself wanting to write about certain characters again, but just moving on because you can't find the proper context for it?
Honestly, no. My issue is if I feel like a character's story, like a lot of people have already come up to me and said, is there going to be another one of these? And I'm like, no, hell no. and it's like, but there's so much more to do after this, where this story ends. And I'm like, yeah, but her story is told. For me, her story's told. And once my characters have gotten to the end of their most important journey, which is usually just a journey of self, I'm good. I'm done. I got nothing left to say about them. When they haven't, so that's how the Coughlin trilogy happened, was because Joe was a little boy. And then he became a young man. And then he still had another journey to go on after being a sort of middle-aged man. He wasn't complete. Once I completed him, book's over. So that's I guess that's the answer.
All right. Thanks.
Thanks. Thank you.
Hello.
Yes, Miss. Hi.
So I grew up in Hull, Massachusetts. So
Hull,
I
yeah.
appreciate,
Shout out.
I appreciate
Teddy Daniels home.
The occasional
All right.
shout out. So I was wondering if you could share a little bit about your process as far as, are you I have to write a certain number of words a day, it has to be right the first time, I write
no.
and revise, or...
I'm revise. I'm at least 3 drafts, minimum. I didn't know that. I never knew that until somebody pointed it, one of my agent pointed it out to me. She said, yeah, you're doing your 3rd draft now. We'll be good. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you're 3 draft minimum. And then I went back and I thought about it, and I was like, wow, every single book, it's been 3 drafts. I don't believe, for me personally, I don't believe in a word count, because my issue is I know people say, "Oh, I never get up unless I've written 1,200 words." Yeah, but what if 1,100 of them suck? Like, really, you know? No, but seriously, that's my issue. It's kind of like my issue is put yourself in the chair for a certain amount of time. That's very important. And if you only get 12 words out of that, then you got 12 words, and you could end up getting 1,200. It's quite possible, but it depends upon the day. It depends upon the groove. Early in a book, like the first 100 days of a book are very erratic to me. They're very kind of crawling and itching, and I don't even know what story I'm telling yet. And then you get this wonderful groove that lasts for a little while, and then you get the middle. And the middle is a dread. Every single writer I know dreads the middle of a book. It's the valley of darkness. It really is. David Mamet has a great line. The problems of the second act are the problems of the first act. And what that means is every mistake that you made in calculation in the first act that you didn't know about, it bears its fruit in the second act. And you're like, oh, no, that was a terrible idea. And you don't find that out until you get into to the middle. So, and then it's just sort of, I don't know, then you're just sort of cobbling it all together. Every book has been different for me. Some books are easier, some books are harder. Usually the moment I think I've got it figured out is when I'm so wrong. Like I remember after Live by Night was probably the straightest and fastest I ever wrote a book, and never went to third draft. Went to second. And I wrote it in 4 months because it had been bubbling up in me for so long. I'd been building for so long. I always wanted to write a gangster book. And then after I finished it, I remember cockily writing an email to another writer friend of mine saying, like M. Night Shyamalan, I've got this down, And then it was like, and then the next book took 3 years, and it was shorter, and it was the same character, and yet, so you just never know. You just absolutely never know. Thanks. Yes, miss.
Well, you've answered part of my question, so I can be more specific. I've read a couple of your books. How did you come to this character? Is it the first female character you've had as the principal?
Mm-hmm.
And also, do you always have ideas for subsequent books in your head as you're writing one?
No. I'll answer the second half of that very easily. I never have a single idea in my head when I finish a book. It's like I poured everything onto, and I got to wait for my battery to recharge, and it takes a good amount of time. I'm just getting to where I think I know what my next book is. Just getting. And believe me, that's really depressing news for my publisher and my editors and my agent, because I don't know when I'm going to deliver. Yeah, female protagonist. This story just came to me. I said I want to do a Hitchcock. That was the first thing. I just want to do a Hitchcock. I love Hitchcock. I love Hitchcock, and I love early Brian De Palma, which is pretty much the same thing. And it's Hitchcock with nudity. That's early Brian De Palma. So I wanted to do an homage to that type of world. So I started off with this idea of this woman. It just came to me. It popped in my head. This woman who's agoraphobic. If you're agoraphobic, what would my fear be? I don't know about anybody else's, but my fear would be that there could be a whole world going on outside those walls. And all I'm getting is reportage. So you could be telling me anything. You could be telling me anything was happening out there, and I wouldn't know. I just have to trust you. So the amount of trust it would take in another person would be enormous. So if you believed that, and then you finally step out into the world after, let us say, a long period of time, in Rachel's case it's 18 months, and you see your perfect husband walking what you think you see, because it's raining and it's a reflection, but you think you see your perfect husband walking out of a building in Boston when he has told you he's in London. And I think I just realized this now. I actually knew somebody who was carrying on an affair in London, and she would say she was going to a place in Massachusetts every weekend. There was a 2-hour commute, and she thought she could get away with it. And she did for about 6 months. But literally, she was flying off to London, and like calling her husband and being like, "Yeah, I'm just up in Greenfield," So I think there was that sense of, yeah, that's a little bit madness. So Brian is supposed to be in Boston. I mean, in London. She thinks she sees him in Boston, but she's not sure she can trust what she sees because it's pouring rain and she's reflected in a building. And that became the driving force of it. And it just seemed like, why did I start with a woman? I don't know. I just did. And then it just felt very natural, and just go with this and keep the point of view extremely, extremely limited. And so you never see anything in this book that Rachel doesn't see. Never. There's never a moment where I step up as the God's eye and tell you, oh, and there's something else going on here. No, it's just you are locked in with Rachel, and it's as claustrophobic a journey as I could make it. And it goes. The other law is, it's the Jaws rule, which is a Hitchcock rule too. If Jimmy Stewart in Vertigo is afraid of heights, guess what's going to happen at the end of the movie? If Roy Scheider in Brody, if Chief Brody is afraid of water, guess where he has to go by the end of the movie? And so with this, it's an agoraphobic who's afraid of pretty much everything in the outside world. Everything. She can't drive. She can't be in wide open spaces. She can't be in darkness. She can't be in water. She can't be in, guess where she has to go? Every single one of those places by the end of the book. So, thank you.
Thank you. Dennis, for completing my trifecta, I got to see George, of course, lives here, and then Richard Price, and now yourself. And, of course, I'm referring to the three of you as writers for The Wire.
Right.
So my question, I have two related to that. I know you want to talk about your new book.
No, I don't care.
No, I know.
I really
don't. First of all, novelists, whether it's you, Richard, George, you kind of work alone. And you write your books.
Yeah.
And then, of course, TV writing is so much different.
Yeah.
And I've talked to them about it at length, too. So my question is this. Could you talk a little bit about the differences and what happened and how you reacted to it? And then my other question is, suppose that we had a president that could read. Suppose we did.
That's a big suppose.
And you and Richard and George were to submit a piece of writing to him. Which one would he think was the best? No, have a content. No, just joking. But
That's insane.
I know. That's why I did it. That's why I did it, to do it for
Donald.
Donald. No, but is there not competition? But I mean, how does that work? Three great writers, three different cities, New York. I mean, the best at what you do, individually, and then you come in, and so you write together, and then come out. How does that all fit in?
400 pages.
Right.
I only read more than 5. Sad. That would be the tweet.
Okay, got it. That's all. That's out right now.
That's the tweet right there.
That's it. Done.
Woman I couldn't grab by the sad. So, yeah, okay.
The difference. Get back to no. The
go
difference
back.
is right.
Whoop. I'm sorry.
The difference is alone with a group
So
like that.
yeah, alone versus group. Look, the thing is, I'm in TV. I live in LA now,
Right.
and the thing that brought me out there was TV, not film.
Right.
I do film work, but I have no pride of ownership in my scripts. I have no investment in them emotionally. I write them. They're intellectual exercises. I give everything I got to it, and then I press send. I don't even print them. Television is what drew me out. And the reason was, I think, partially because of the Wire experience, and we were just getting a lot of offers after the Wire. And then partially it was the Boardwalk. I worked on Boardwalk Empire.
Right.
And when I was working on Boardwalk Empire, I was 3 months in Brooklyn. I'm going every day. And I was like, oh, this is what water cooler conversation is. I'd never had it. I mean, not since the 90s, not since the mid-90s. And so I was like, wow, this is cool. I had an office, and I gossiped. And like things like that, like that I never do, went out for work, went out after work for drinks. Like I don't do this. And so the social aspect of it was just really sexy. And then I went out to LA and then I just started getting a ton of work. It was an experiment. It was like, we're going to check it out for a year and see what it's like. And it was like a floodgate opened and all of this work started pouring at me. And now I work with David Kelly on an adaptation of Stephen King's Mr. Mercedes. Okay. And that's like more fun than a barrel of monkeys. I mean, it's ridiculous. I'm just having so much fun that I guess I just want to continue doing the balancing act.
And that would be real quick. How do you do that? Just a follow-up question, the balancing act.
I have
Get one done.
You know,
one done and move to the other, basically.
There's the question of my life.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Yeah.
How do you do that? Because there's the book writing, there's the film writing, there's the TV writing, and I have 4 TV projects in play. And I've only one, Mr. Mercedes, is one where I pretty much go in every day, or I'm pretty much on it every day.
Right.
And now that we're shooting the finale now, I'm doing a lot of kind of stitching and triage of the last minute stuff. Right. But no, I don't know how you do it. You just do it. You do it, and you try to juggle all the balls, and you hope they don't fall, and sometimes they do, and that's it. I mean, I wish I had an answer to that question, but I'm doing the best I'm just dancing as fast as I can.
Thanks for the good dancing.
Thank you.
Hi, Dennis. So, as a Tufts graduate, I always enjoy a bit of armchair traveling back to Boston.
Yeah. And
can you tell me, like, on top of it being the hometown, what is it about the city that you think gives it so much dramatic value, makes it such a good place to set a crime thriller?
I don't, I've had a lot of time to think about this. The thing I think about Boston, I think it's true of cities, the more I look around. cities are like aircraft carriers. They don't turn real easy. So while the rest of the country is flattening out and becoming very homogenized, cities are still retaining their identity. And I'm an urban novelist, and I write about one particular city, which is Boston. But I feel like the way George writes about Washington, the way Richard writes about New Jersey, the way William Kennedy wrote about Albany and still does, I feel like there's a special flavor to the places. It's very particular to those places. And Boston's just it's an odd little place. I mean, there's no place like it. I'll guarantee you that. There's no place like Boston. And I say I think because, everybody's, I truly feel this, and I say this as a homer, so I can, and I conclude myself in this. Everybody from Boston is at least one can short of a six-pack. I mean, everybody's, and I say I am one. We're all just a little bit nuts, like we are. And I was trying to describe this once to somebody, and I'll give you the best anecdote I know. When I was in college, I'd been in college I was in undergrad and then grad. For 6 years, I was in Florida. No place is more different than Boston than Florida. It's just, there's nothing in common. They have nothing in common. And I was in Miami in grad school, and I remember this moment where I thought I was trying to write something set in Boston, and I thought, I think I lost the voice. I think I can't feel. I got to reach for this a little bit harder. I'm not feeling this at a granular level anymore. And I went back that Christmas, and I ran into a buddy of mine who'd been kind of a brawler back in the day, and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, I'm good. Well, I got stabbed, and and I said, no, what happened? What happened? And he said there's a bar in Faneuil Hall called Sean's back at the time. He goes, I was in Sean's. I got into this beef with this dude, and we started to go swinging, and he stabbed me, and he goes, and I don't know what you've heard, but getting stabbed kind of takes the fight out of a guy. And it was like, bing, voice is back. There's the voice. There it is, right there. Because when you got to parse that sentence, it's like the first half was, I don't know what you've heard, as if you could have been under the impression that getting stabbed is like a hot rock massage, right? And then the massive understatement, it kind of takes the fight out of a guy. No, you were stabbed, dude. You know what I mean? Like, and I thought, that's the voice. That is the voice of my city, and that's the voice of somebody who's nuts. Like a little bit nuts. And so that's what I write about. And that's, I think, why probably, I don't know. And then it's funny, there was a Seth Meyers did a hilarious movie parody called Boston Accent. Just look it up. And this whole thing about, what is a Boston movie? And it's about loyalty. There's this whole sequence where it's like it's about loyalty. And then he said, there's something, and I do this too. I got caught doing this too. He said, you hear the narrator say, and then there'll be a moment where two guys just talk incessantly about different towns in Boston. And one guy's like, so you want to meet in Swampscott? And the other guy's like, no, how about Brockton? No, how about Leominster? What about Somerville? Right? And then you hear the narrator say, this conversation goes on for 10 more minutes. Right? That is such an aspect of us. I don't know what the hell that is, but I'm constantly obsessing over these completely minutiae details about where the thing is happening and whether that street is actually there, and it's ridiculous. So I hope that helped, kind of.
One of my favorite things in the book was the Newberry Comics hat.
The Newberry Comics hat in which book?
In this one.
Was there?
She puts on a Newberry.
Oh,
Comics
she does.
hat,
You're
yeah.
right. You're right. That's right.
I had a couple questions for you.
Okay.
One was about working in a writer's room and sort of. How much do you fight for your ideas and how much do you, kind of give into collaborating and how that works? And then secondly, just any one or two writers or books that you really loved when you were starting out that really helped you, inspire you to be a writer.
Oh, okay. Every writer's room is different. It depends upon your showrunner. Your showrunner sets the tone, or his second in command, depending on who it is. Some showrunners take their hands way off, and they let their second in command run the show. Some showrunners are all hands-on. Some showrunners, I've had literally, this is a David Kelly moment. Me and another guy broke an entire episode. David was off in his office. I don't know what he was doing. And he showed back up after. He said, "You guys ready for me?" And we were like, "Yeah." And he walked out. He was literally walking out. He had his bag. He was leaving. He walked out and he looked at our board. And he said, he just looked at it for a minute and he goes, "Move 37 in between 42 and 43." And we did. And we were like, holy shit, it's perfect. And he goes, okay, we'll see you. And he walked out. That's working with David Kelly. Everybody is different. I've seen people fight in rooms. Again, it depends upon the showrunner. It depends upon what you're fighting for. I've gone into rooms where I picked up a rep for a little while. I'm way behind the scenes, and I've gone into rooms just to fix and help out, and you don't even see me. You don't see my fingerprints anywhere. And I just got a rep within the community. I can stabilize difficult rooms, right? And so, but I've gone in and literally thrown. I call it just pitching. I've literally pitched till my arm falls off for 90 days straight, and then I walk away, and I'm done. And whether they take my advice or they don't, that's fine. And whether you take my ideas or you don't, that's cool. I'm good. I'm out the door. I've seen other things that happen in writers' room. I think I believe in really small writers' rooms, super small now, because I've seen writers' rooms get stocked with people who just, it's like kind of like being in a writing class. They get stocked with people who just sit there to hear themselves speak. And you're like, I want to get home for dinner. You know what I mean? Like, that's my thing. So I just don't think they have to be. The Mercedes room is a real run and gun room. There's only a couple of us. We hardly ever get together. We do it by phone. We do it by email. Every now and then we get together. And it is working out fantastic. So every room is different. But the most dysfunctional room I ever worked on was the room with the most bells and whistles. And I feel in my heart of hearts I'm an indie film guy. And I just don't believe in big production. And so I don't think it takes much. It takes 3 really good writers in a room to break a TV show. That's it. And everybody else is, I mean, they're just, they're like accessories to the room. They're like pencils. You know what I mean? So, so that's been my personal experience in rooms.
Sure.
So, and then as far as the most influential stuff on me, Richard Price's The Wanderers was actually the single most influential book on me. It's the reason I became a writer.
So I know you wrote the intro for Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Friends of Eddie Coyle was not a big influence on me. I read Friends of Eddie Coyle late. I came to it late, very late. I'd always heard about it, but I just never came to it. And then I came to it really late. It's a great book. It casts a huge shadow. It was an enormous influence on Elmore Leonard, who was an enormous influence on me. But I wouldn't say that wasn't a game changer for me. I would say literally, if you asked me one of the 2 books that made me say, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, it would be The Wanderers, and it would be What We Talk About When We Talk About Love by Raymond Carver. Those would be the 2. And then you get into Elmore Leonard's Unknown Man number 89, James Lee Burke's Black Cherry Blues, Pete Dexter's God's Pocket. Those are books that all had a significant influence too.
Cool.
So,
Thanks.
yes, sir.
Hi.
Hi.
How much fun was it to write the Babe Ruth Red Sox part in The Given Day?
Oh, to write the Babe Ruth stuff in The Given Day? It was a blast. Here's something that happens that's wonderful. I didn't research Ruth when I wrote the book. I didn't want to. I wanted to make him mine first, and then I'd double-check everything. So I gave him all this biographical data and just laid it in there and said, I'll deal with it later because I'm just creating the character. And I went back and I checked, and, like, I knew nothing about Ruth. I got, like, 80% of it right. It was crazy. It was crazy what I intuited about the guy just by kind of working off pictures, and it's nuts. Those happy accidents happen a lot in writing. The Given Day was, man, it was so much fun. It was so much fun that I spent 5 years of my life on it, 700 pages. I didn't know how to stop. I was like, yeah, I better stop. I literally had this moment where I said, I think it's time to stop this book, you know? It's an interesting book because there's 2 reactions to The Given Day. I get them all the time, and one of them's the most flattering, and the other one is the punchline. People only say 2 things to me about The Given Day. I either get, oh, it's one of my favorite books, one of the best books I ever read, it's a great American novel. I literally hear that stuff about The Given Day, and I'm like, thank you so much. Or I hear, well, I started it. And it just trails off. So, well, if that's it, I'll be happy to sign. Or if anybody's got another question, please hold your peace. All right. Yes, sir. Okay, there's a gentleman in the middle there. Call it out, sir. I can handle it. Okay. Oh, I don't want you to get you in trouble.
you mentioned a happy coincidences. In a given day, one of your characters takes off for L.A. and you're in L.A. Can we anticipate an L.A. book?
No, there will never be an LA book. I feel no, and I say that out of the deepest respect because look at the shadows that are cast. I think when I was looking back at the books that have come out of LA in the 20th century, I mean, we're talking about Raymond Chandler, John Fonte, Nathaniel West, Day the Locust. They Shoot Horses, don't they? Which is one of my favorite noirs. James Ellroy's LA Quartet. I mean, this is a huge shadow. I don't think I should show up, this tourist, this carpetbagger, as we would say where I come from, and then deign to kind of say I can say something about this city. Oh, Michael Tolkien's the player. You know, like it's just like I don't think I can add to this. So no, Boston's my little backyard. It's the only place I get kind of stroppy about. Like I feel like with Boston, I feel like Joe Montana when they drafted Steve Young. I hear anybody writes a book in my territory, I get kind of like, yeah, all right, it's on, you know, like, that's my town. So I feel like I'm just going to drill down into that and just do that. But I am out there. I'm stuck out there now. I'm not getting back. My kids look at me like, what? My 4-year-old, literally, when I broached it even a little bit, my 4-year-old just said, she has this thing where she hits the last word of a sentence sometimes to really be emphatic, you know? And she goes, I don't want to go back to Boston. And I said, why? And she goes, because I hate brick. And my eldest was like, it was like, you know, it was like being like in a heavily Catholic household and saying, I don't believe in God. I mean, she just looked at her like, is Daddy going to kill her now? You know, like it was, you know. So, yeah, and so she's 5. So I figure that's 13 years until she graduates high school. So I'm there at least 13 years. So, yes, sir.
One little question. You think you're going to bring back Kenzie, or is that era in Boston over?
Will I bring back Kenzie and Gennaro? I don't know. The simple answer is I don't know. I said never before, and I brought him back. So I'm never saying never again.
Okay.
But at the same time, I don't know that nothing's jumping out at me right now. They're not talking to me, and I have this one rule about them, which is I won't plug them into plots. It means that they have to come to me with the story. I have a story to tell now. Usually an internal journey story. You know what I mean? It's like, and the last time was you know, Patrick came to me and it was really Moonlight Mile is about a lot of things, but it's really about the 2008 meltdown, the financial meltdown that left us all holding the bag, and particularly the working class. And Patrick is my, I didn't realize this until late into the books, but Patrick is my connection to my father. That's exactly what he represents for me. He's my connection to the working class. He will never make more than like 60 grand a year because he's my connection to that world, and very much to my old man. So although my old man didn't like guns, but you know, I'll be on that. So I don't know if he'll come back. I don't know what I would do with them if they do come back. But if they do come back, I'd be very happy, and my publisher would be very happy. Believe me. But I just got to wait to see.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Well, thank you all very much. Happy to sign.